Greetings, my dear friends. This is Jax once again with the continuation this time of my last episode of Jax Simplifies. China, the Middle Kingdom, or in the middle of all global disputes. You would recollect we did go over the historical references as far as all the global, especially the boundary disputes, including the maritime disputes which China has with the world. This is now the second part where we will answer the question why now? What has prompted China to jump the gun? You would recollect China has used history and maps in a very creative cartographic aggression. This aggression has no parallel, and China digs up an old map from somewhere to continue on its hegemonic ambitions and claims. Practically, in all disputes, they try to expand their territorial limits, and Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Burma all gave in and accepted whatever the Chinese said. In the South China Sea, they expected to get away with it. However, the Vietnamese fought. The Vietnamese gave China a bloody nose in 1975. So did Taiwan. Or Japan is resisting, and India now. China acts as a big bully. It does not follow global ethics or norms, conventions, treaties. It does not, or rather, it did not accept the ruling of the International Tribunal when it ruled against it in the South China Sea. And it tries to bulldoze its way through to become a superpower. India is one of the significant powers in the Asian region. China treats India as a regional competitor, a roadblock for its free run. India showed spine by not joining the Belt and Road Initiative. It did not take loans either. The US, Europe see China's expansion plans as a global threat, and they've started accepting India's leadership in the issue. Therefore, China wants to keep India off guard and test it every so often, either by incursions, or claims, like in Bhutan, or instigating Nepal. It views Tibet as its lifeline. We will go into it in a moment. And it is clear that either China or India will control Tibet. Therefore, India has to be brought to heel no matter what happens. And if India can be healed, well, the world will follow. Disputes have been China's calling card. It has escalated now. The question is, why? Is it sensing an opportunity due to the preoccupation of the world with COVID? Is it feeling threatened internally? What is the importance of the Communist Party Congress in 2021? And finally, does Xi fear his own position? Well, let's get into each of these things one by one. China does have or has been presented by a very unique opportunity. The world is busy. Whether deliberately or by error, whether by default or by design, COVID has left the entire world on its knees. The global economy has been hit. On the other hand, China surprisingly has been spared of all the effects of COVID, despite the fact it was the one where it all started. China is ramping up its economy. China has been in the center of all global supply lines: manufacturing, telecom, pharmaceuticals, you name it. China is there. It has the power of denial. It can deny the resources, the supplies which the world wants, or it can deny the procurement of raw materials from countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada. And it uses this to its advantage. The United States is in election mode. China sensed an opportunity here because for a while the US will be inward looking. The European Union is weak. Russia is on its own side. So it calculated that it probably will be able to get away with a little more of muscle flexing. However, there has been, well, I don't have a name for it, but I would like to call it the coalition of the angry. The world is angry. India is angry because of Galwan. The world is angry because COVID has got its economy on its knees, yet China is spared. The world is angry that the global bodies like the United Nations, the WHO, the IMF have been curtailed, muffled to a large extent, subverted by China. Chinese diplomats posture very aggressively and call themselves wolf warriors. Hong Kong, where it abrogated the treaty it had with the United Kingdom and is passing new laws and taking very harsh action against the protests there, its acceptance of one country, two systems seems to be in question. It's posturing very, very aggressively in Taiwan, in the South China Sea, and in the East China Sea with Japan. This has very obviously brought in very quickly the coalition of the angered. China did not make a secret of its global ambitions, but it bided its time. But Xi has made it an open secret and has articulated it as such, that it wants to dominate the world. One of the ways to do it is the use of military. 67 Chinese military academies have over 1,000 foreign students at any one time. China showcases its weapon systems as world-class: carriers, submarines, missiles, including space. It exports arms to all other countries, especially in the third world. It tries to bring in international relations through partnerships, not alliances. And in all these partnerships, it is the senior partner. It has had bases in Djibouti, Myanmar, and Tajikistan. It's trying to establish in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Mali. It wants to dominate the South China Sea by creating artificial islands, military bases, air bases. It wants to dominate Taiwan and Japan through the Senkaku Islands. South China Sea is critical for China. Over $3.5 trillion of global trade passes through the South China Sea, roughly 1/3 of global maritime trade. 80% of Chinese energy imports, 40% of its total trade happens through here. Significant but unexplored oil and gas, $11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of gas has been found here. It is home to one of the best fishing grounds globally. 10% of the world's fish comes from here. The South China Sea is bounded by Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, South Korea, all of whom are not very friendly with China, and can blockade its trade. Therefore, China feels threatened. It is dependent on the sea. The South China Sea is the only sea it has, and that is under threat. Its rise is under threat. So comes the brainwave. China, don't forget, had set up excess manufacturing capacity to prop up its economy. It needs this manufacturing to continue at full speed so that it can continue to grow at breakneck speed and provide its people with the money, thereby keeping them quiet. The brainwave was the Belt and Road Initiative, an initiative which would reduce the dependence of China on the sea, at the same time, utilize the excess capacity it had in manufacturing, provide jobs for its people, a better lifestyle, and win over countries using what is called as the checkbook diplomacy. China, as a part of the BRI, has provided loans to 138 countries. Yes, 138 countries, over $1 trillion in loans for access and power. These loans are at interest rates higher than the financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. Many of these countries are questionable, and therefore many of them are defaulting or asking renegotiations or write-offs. In some areas, like Sri Lanka, has handed over the Hanamtota port on a 99-year lease. Some countries, like Afghanistan and Myanmar, are saying no to this. But of late, the BRI has slowed down. The same projects are being inaugurated again and again. The advances by Chinese banks have reduced. China also feels that it wants to be a technological leader. China has invested over $1 trillion in 5G. Surprisingly, 60% of all patents in 5G are held by Chinese companies like Huawei. The US and many countries in the West are now against Huawei, citing security concerns. For all its manufacturing in the high-tech area, China needs microprocessors, the high-end microprocessors. Very few sources, and the simplest, easiest source is Taiwan. Taiwan is among the world's largest manufacturer of high-end processors. Now you realize why so aggressive posturing against Taiwan? Because of this, and because the US wants to deny microprocessors to China, it has sent its 2 carrier task forces in support of Taiwan. China of late has sensed an opportunity in the Pak-occupied Kashmir. Why? Because manufacture of microprocessors needs copious amounts of water, and China is a water deficit country. On the other hand, the POK has enough water coming from Indus and its tributaries. It is constructing 2 dams there at Azadpatan and Kola over the Jhelum. One of the reasons is also to set up microprocessor manufacturing here. We did touch upon the water security of China. China is a water deficit country. Its major source of water is Tibet. Yes, Tibet. Tibet feeds the Yellow and the Yangtze rivers. These plains, and don't forget, Chinese civilization is actually the Yellow River Basin civilization. These plains are most fertile for agriculture, important for food security. You can have 2 crops here on an annual basis. The alternate source of water for China, is again Tibet on the west side, the Pak-occupied Kashmir and the Aksai Chin. Of late, there have been massive floods across the country in China. The Three Gorges Dam is under threat. So, can China afford Tibetan influence? Independence? Absolutely not. It wants to control the Dalai Lama and definitely the successor to Dalai Lama, and therefore is the importance of Tibet as far as China is concerned. If there was water security issue, food security is obviously very important. China is home to 1.4 billion people. No matter how much they grow, it's still less. So they hit upon the idea of using Africa as their field and granary. Yes, Africa. Chinese state companies have bought huge tracts of land across Africa and are cultivating in Africa for the Chinese. Of late, they have started facing some opposition from the African states, and of course, a blockade of the South China Sea will give them even more problems. Add to this an aging population, and by 2035, a significantly large number of Chinese will be above the age of 65 years. Right? That gives, obviously, you can make out the issues as far as China is concerned with food. China is also facing an economic slowdown. Excess capacity? No orders. Because the world has united against China as a result of COVID. The BRI has slowed down. Countries who have taken loans from China are reneging on their debt. And global boycott of Chinese goods is hurting. Therefore, unemployment is rising. Internal debt, some claim, is as high as 300% of GDP. China wanted to replace the dollar by the renminbi in oil trade. Not happened. Chinese banks are now getting bankrupt and are very vastly overextended. Economic slowdown is here to stay. In the year 2012, in the 18th Congress of the Communist Party, they declared what is called as the centenary goals. China, at the plenary in 2021, would like to show its success, the success of the Chinese model of benevolent communism. This is very important for Xi because he has to make his presence felt and leave his legacy. It would definitely like to report success on all fronts. Let's go over some of these important ones one by one. It wanted to double the GDP by 2021. Well, it has achieved this. A roadmap or established control over the following areas. Hong Kong, done its best. It has introduced a new law, has started implementing it, but success is now questionable. The world is against it. In the South China Sea, it has built all the necessary infrastructure and the muscle flexing using its PLA Navy. However, Quad seems to be a thorn in its side. It has cornered a lot of the world's resources. Africa, the breadbasket. Oil, globally, it has cornered many of the new oil fields. Its leadership in high-tech areas is growing. Yes, microprocessors are giving it a major problem. The grand success of BRI is there. However, bankruptcy is giving trouble. Taiwan remains a major thorn. It wanted to take over before the plenary or at least by 2022, but this entire thing is in jeopardy. Did China actually try to take over in June, July of this year? And the US task force was sent just to ensure it did not? Jury is out on this issue. The WUHAN virus or the COVID in its aftermath has identified China as the villain, the source of the pandemic, the delaying of information to the world, influencing the WHO to toe its line, a very suspicious spread. The virus has spread to the US, tens of thousand kilometers away, but not 1,000 kilometers away to Peking. It supplied substandard material as gifts and tried to use them as bargaining chips, tried to buy out companies that were facing problems, economic issues globally, and has threatened and targeted countries like Australia that questioned China. The Galwan Valley standoff has brought the attention of the world to the Chinese approach. And the underbelly of the Chinese: stand up to the bully and the bully will shut up. So what happens from here? I do not expect China to cool down anywhere immediately, at least till 2021, where Xi would want to present the success of the Chinese model, despite the fact that its goals achievement is iffy. Xi is not, Xi cannot really be challenged except by an internal party candidate. For example, the Prime Minister Li Keqiang. Is there a revolution possible in China? Well, as on date, I don't think so. Despite the fact the prices are rising, so is unemployment. There are huge regional imbalances. The handling of COVID leaves a lot to be desired, including within China. Banks are bankrupt or getting to bankruptcy, and the global boycott of Chinese goods is threatening. So, gentlemen, we continue to live in very interesting times. It will be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds itself. As always, I would love to hear your comments. Do like, share this video, and suggest new topics that you would like me to take up in the future. Thank you very much. Have a great day.